Welcome back. He is running for re-election, getting ready for a May 27th runoff for the GOP nomination for Lieutenant Governor. Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst, thank you very much for being with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Beyond the campaign, you've been busy also this week because you've been up at the Red River dealing with a big land dispute. Kind of give me the background on this. It's been kind of a long time coming.
Well, more than getting sunburned up on the Red River yesterday, I went up there because this is very, very important to me. Most people don't realize that in 1999 and 2000, I was the chairman of the Red River Commission, the Red River Compact, in which we settled the jurisdictional line for Texas as the southern line of vegetation. And now we've got the BLM who is coming in and scaring all these ranchers and saying, well, we want to do a study. We want to see if your land is actually owned by the federal government, which is nonsense. Almost every family can trace their title back to the early 1800s, in which either by patent or deed their land was given to them, sold to them by the state of Texas. And so for all these years, 150 plus years, people have been paying taxes on that land, and it's their land. When we settled this in the Red River Compact, it was that the northern border of Texas, on the edge of the Red River, would be, as I mentioned just a moment ago, the line of vegetation. Now that could move south into Texas, or that line of vegetation could move north. But that was the line. And so I feel very, very concerned about these ranchers and farmers whose title to their land, whose value of their land is being impacted by the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management of the federal government, who's not being sensitive to private property rights. And as far as I'm concerned, the state of Texas has an obligation to stand up for private property rights when there is a large chance of an unlawful taking.
What can the state of Texas do for those landowners?
File suit. File suit in federal court. Ask for either a declaratory judgment that the land is owned pursuant to the agreement that was made between Oklahoma and Texas in 2000, which I signed that document, which was ratified by the United States Congress. Or if the BLM starts to move towards taking land, go in and show, which under federal law and Texas law, there's a color of title. I own this land. I paid for this land. I've been paying taxes on this land for 30 years, 40 years. All right?
So if it goes the legal route, is that something you're going to make sure the Attorney General's office does? I
have already reached out. I've spoken with the Attorney General's office. They have sent a letter to the Bureau of Land Management. I think we need to be ready to take legal action unless we can reach an amicable solution, which is the people that have paid for their land, paid taxes on their land, retain their land.
Now, you were up there with Land Commissioner Jerry Patterson.
Right.
Is this not something that his office could do alone?
Well, it is, but I was the chairman of the Red River Commission. I have a real strong interest in this, so the two of us, we went up there yesterday together.
Well, let's move on to some campaign-related stuff. So I know that you have spoken out just this week about a website that's come up from the Texas Democrats. It's called Mountain Dewhurst. You know, catchy name, I guess. They call you anti-woman, anti-immigrant, the slasher-in-chief, voter bully. You know, whether that's true or not, I mean, why do you feel like they're going after someone in the Republican primary runoff and not worrying about Democrats?
Well, you notice they're doing it against me and not against my opponent, Dan Patrick. And that's because at the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the largest chamber of commerce in the entire United States, last Thursday, I said, in Spanish, I said, mi oponente es anti-inmigrante, anti-hispano, anti-mujer, y no tengo ninguno de estos valores. My opponent is anti-immigrant, anti-Hispanic, anti-woman, and I don't share any of these values with him. At the end of the day, as Republicans, we know that to stay the majority party, we're going to have to make sure that we're including like-minded people. And Hispanics think like the majority of Texans. They're conservative. They want to be left alone by government. They want to make sure that their children get a good public education. They want to be able to buy a home, live in a safe neighborhood, and not be bothered by government. And that's what Republicans believe.
You have recently spoken out and said that the Democratic Party is tone deaf about what Texas voters want. What do you mean by that?
Well, the Democrat Party seems to be looking at wedge issues. Certainly we went through that on the protecting of women's health and the protecting on the life of babies in June. But they're looking at wedge issues. At the end of the day, the majority of the people in Texas, I believe, as I've talked to them over the years, as I've talked to a lot of people just this last year, they want, like my Hispanic friends, they want to be left alone by state government. They don't want more state government. They want less taxes. Over the last 10 years, I've helped cut taxes in Texas over 50 times for almost $16 billion. They don't want the government, the state government, to spend money on things that are not a priority. That's why I've focused our spending on priorities. That's why I've kept our spending here in Texas some 11% below inflation and population growth while still funding our priorities: public education, higher education, road building, our public safety. So these are the issues that I think Texans are interested in. But you can't have any of these advantages. You can't have a good public education system without liberty. And that's why I consider myself a conservative. I'll fight for your rights under the U.S. Constitution every day. And I'll fight for every Texan's rights.
You know, I was wondering if it might be easier to try to get you out of, of this entire race for the Democrats, because you actually polled better against Leticia Vanderputte, who's the Democratic nominee, when the public policy polling came out this month.
Well, I mean, that was right. That's what I was saying, that I'm a stronger candidate against the Democrat nominee than my opponent is.
So your opponent has also been busy as well with legislative stuff. One of the interim charges that you did has been with public education. Specifically, right. A lot with the STAR test has been being worked on. Kind of talk to me about why you decided that was something that should be tackled in the interim.
Well, I want to make sure that our efforts in the STAR test keep a sufficiently accountable system. Now, we have led the country over the last several years in putting accountability in our public schools. We want to know how our children are doing, and we want each school to be able to see how they're doing. But I believe we've gotten to a point where previously, with 15 different high-stakes end-of-course exams, we were spending over a month of each school year on testing. By eliminating that by 2/3 down to 5 tests, we free up instructional time. And so we're permitting our students to get more good instruction in the classroom, and that was my goal. I'm a product of public schools right here in Texas. I want our public schools to be great again. We've got some great teachers, great principals, and we want to support those people and have more great teachers. And so that's why I was looking at the STAR test. Always also wanted to take a look at our testing and make sure that we have an adequate amount of accountability, but we're not teaching to the test.
Where do you think that the testing conversation should go now? We've been trying this for, this first time out the gate, but where should we go in the next legislative session?
Well, I think that with the investigation that our Education Committee will do, I'm anxious to see exactly whether we hit the right number. Do we need a little bit more accountability? Do we need less? I've had a concern, and I told my opponent this time after time after time. I've got a concern that if we eliminate a testing in English 3, people might not take English 3. If we eliminate testing in Algebra 2, people may not take Algebra 2. And the business leaders I know say that the #1 course as far as teaching students how to think in the business environment is Algebra 2. So I want to make sure that we haven't backed off too much, because I want to make sure our students, when they graduate from high school, they're ready to do whatever, either go into a career and they have the skills, or to be able to go to a 2-year or 4-year school.
All right, well, we'll certainly be watching for the next couple of weeks before the May 27th runoff. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will be right back with State of Texas In Depth.